Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for April the 23rd. Today we are reading together in Numbers chapter 17 and Numbers chapter 18, looking at these two chapters together because they really coincide well with what we've seen in the previous chapters, where leadership and specifically leadership from the Levites and the priesthood has been challenged. Now we're going to see where Yahweh makes it abundantly clear that Aaron is his choice, not just for the priest, but the priesthood, not just for the priesthood, excuse me, but that his family specifically will have the high priestlyhood. And then also we're going to see the provisions that Yahweh, with some of the things that we've already read about are going to be repeated, but we're going to get a little bit of additional new material. It's going to tell us about how Yahweh is taking care of the Levites for the vital role that they play in the nation of Israel and the health of Israel, not just from a spiritual perspective, but also, as we'll see, from a physical perspective. So thanks so much for tuning in today on this Sunday. Let me get the text of Numbers 17 and 18 up on screen for us, and let's read along together. Numbers Chapter 17 and verse number 1, Yahweh instructed Moses, speak to the Israelites and take one staff from them for each ancestral tribe, 12 staffs from all the leaders of their tribes. Write each man's name on his staff. Write Aaron's name on Levi's staff, because there is to be one staff for the head of each tribe. Then place them in the tent of meeting in front of the testimony where I meet with you. The staff of the man I choose will sprout, and I will rid myself of the Israelites' complaints that they have been making about you. So Moses spoke to the Israelites, and each of their leaders gave him a staff, one for each of the leaders of their tribes, 12 staffs in all. Aaron's staff was among them. Moses placed the staffs before Yahweh in the tent of the testimony. The next day, Moses entered the tent of the testimony and saw that Aaron's staff, representing the house of Levi, had sprouted, but not just sprouted, and also formed buds, blossomed, and produced almonds. Moses then brought out all the staffs from Yahweh's presence to all the Israelites. They saw them, and each man took his own staff. Yahweh told Moses, put Aaron's staff back in front of the testimony to be kept as a sign for the rebels, so that you may put an end to their complaints before me, or else they will die. So Moses did as Yahweh commanded him. Then the Israelites declared to Moses, look, we're perishing. We're lost. We're all lost. Anyone who comes near Yahweh's tabernacle will die. Will we all perish? Chapter 18, verse number 1, Yahweh said to Aaron, take special note of that, this is very uncommon. Yahweh spoke to Aaron and said to Aaron, you and your sons and your ancestral family will be responsible for iniquity against the sanctuary. You and your sons will be responsible for iniquity involving your priesthood, but also bring your relatives with you from the tribe of Levi, your ancestral tribe, so they may join you and assist you and your sons in front of the tent of the testimony. They are to perform duties for you and for the whole tent. They must not come near the sanctuary equipment or the altar, otherwise both they and you will die. They are to join you and guard the tent of meeting, doing all the work at the tent, but no unauthorized person may come near you. You are to guard the sanctuary and the altar so that wrath may not fall on the Israelites again. Look, I have selected your fellow Levites from the Israelites as a gift for you, assigned by Yahweh to work at the tent of meeting. But you and your sons will carry out your priestly responsibilities for everything concerning the altar and for what is inside the curtain, and you will do that work. I've given you the work of the priesthood as well, but an unauthorized person who comes near the sanctuary will be put to death. Then Yahweh spoke to Aaron, look, I have put you in charge of the contributions brought to me. As for all the holy offerings of the Israelites, I have given them to you and your sons as a portion and a permanent statute. A portion of the holiest offerings kept from the fire will be yours. Every one of their offerings that they give me, whether the grain offering, sin offering, or guilt offering, will be most holy for you and your sons. You are to eat it as a most holy offering. Every male may eat it. It is to be holy to you. The contribution of their gifts also belongs to you. I have given all the Israelites presentation offerings to you and to your sons and daughters as a permanent statute. Every ceremonially clean person in your house may eat it. I have given you all the best of the fresh oil new wine and grain, which the Israelites give to Yahweh as their first fruits, the first fruits of all that is in their land, which they bring to Yahweh. They belong to you. Every clean person in your house may eat them. Everything in Israel that is permanently dedicated to Yahweh belongs to you. The firstborn of every living thing, human or animal, presented to Yahweh belongs to you. But you must certainly redeem a human firstborn and redeem the firstborn of an unclean animal. You will pay the redemption price for a month-old male according to your assessment, 5 shekels of silver by the standard sanctuary shekel, which is 20 gerahs. However, you must not redeem the firstborn of an ox, a sheep, or a goat. They are holy. You are to splatter their blood on the altar and burn their fat as a food offering for a pleasing aroma to Yahweh. But their meat belongs to you. It belongs to you like the breast of the presentation offering and the right thigh. I give to you and your sons and daughters all the holy contributions that the Israelites present to Yahweh as a permanent statute. It is a permanent covenant of salt before Yahweh for you as well as your offspring. Yahweh told Aaron, you will not have, you will not have an inheritance in their land. There will be no portion among them for you. I am your portion and your inheritance among the Israelites. Look, I have given the Levites every 10th in Israel as an inheritance in return for the work they do, the work of the tent of meeting. The Israelites must never again come near the tent of meeting, or they will incur guilt and die. The Levites will do the work of the tent of meeting, and they will bear the consequences of their iniquity. The Levites will not receive an inheritance among the Israelites. This is a permanent statute throughout your generations. For I have given them the tent that the Israelites present to Yahweh as a contribution for their inheritance. That is why I told them that they would not receive an inheritance among the Israelites. Yahweh instructed Moses, as verse 25, speak to the Levites and tell them, when you receive from the Israelites the tenth that I have given you as your inheritance, you are to present part of it as an offering to Yahweh, a tenth of the tenth. So basically 1%, I guess would be that, right? Verse 27, your offering will be credited to you as if it were your grain from the threshing floor or the full harvest from the winepress. You are to present an offering to Yahweh from every tenth you receive from the Israelites. Give some of it to the priest Aaron as an offering to Yahweh. You must present the entire offering due to Yahweh from all your gifts, and the best part of the tenth is to be consecrated. Tell them further, once you have presented the best part of the tenth, and it is credited to you, Levites, as the produce of the threshing floor or the winepress, then you and your household may eat it anywhere. It is your wage in return for your work at the tent of meeting. You will not incur guilt because of it. Once you have presented the best part of it, you must not defile the Israelites' holy offerings so that you will not die. And that is Leviticus. That is Numbers 17 and Numbers 18. All right, considering these two chapters together, again, we need to keep them in the context of what has just previously happened. The fact that Korah's rebellion stemmed from issues concerning the priesthood. How dare Aaron and his descendants, why do they get to be the high priest? Why don't we get to do that? We're all holy. The whole nation is holy. So why can't any of us offer these sacrifices? Why can't any of us be in the lineage or be in line for the high priest position? Well, because that's not God's will. God's will was for Aaron and his descendants to be of the high priest. So we have this test, I guess. It is a very interesting way that this plays out, that Yahweh wants 12 staffs from the 12 tribes, which that begs the question, is it 12 tribes staffs plus Aaron, so 13? Or is Aaron's a part of that? We're just not really sure. It's not really that big of a deal, really, I guess, anyways. But this would have been where they took the walking staff of each of these leaders of the tribes, which would have been very important symbols of who they were. They would not have been, more than likely, just scrub pieces of wood. They would not have been just random piece of wood that they found one day. They probably would have been decorated, probably would have been carved, would have had their name put on there as Moses instructed, as Yahweh instructed here. And Aaron's was put in there as well. And the instruction was, whichever one I choose, which in choosing the staff was a representation of them choosing the person, well, then that staff is going to sprout. You're going to see that it's going to look different from the rest of them. There's going to come life from these dead pieces of wood. And then you'll know that these complaints don't matter, that you should not complain to me anymore, because I'm showing you very clearly who my priest and who my high priest is. So they do this the next day. Not only has Aaron's staff representing the tribe of Levi, not only has it sprouted, but it's also formed buds. It has blossomed, but not only that, it actually produced almonds, which tells us this would have been an almond staff. And what an incredible thing that would have been. So Moses then presents this to Israel and gives the staffs back to the other tribes, and they see, hey, look, this tribe of Levi, they are the special ones. They will have these positions. You need to honor them. And then he takes that staff and puts it before the ark. And we know later on it's kept within the ark as a symbol of the Levite special position among the children of Israel. Well, Israel responds to this in a way that we've seen previously, where they freak out. They say, "Oh no, we're going to die. How can we do anything? We're perishing. We're lost. We're all lost. Anyone who comes near Yahweh is going to die." And that's true. Again, having Yahweh's presence among the people was an awesome blessing, but it was also a very dangerous responsibility. And in saying this, I think it was the hope that the people would begin to appreciate the Levites' position, appreciate the role that they played among the people, because they played a very important mediating role between the people. They were the ones who stood between the people, a very sinful people at times, and a very holy God. And if they didn't have them standing between, if the Israelites did not have the Levites standing between them and God, then they would have no hope. They would have no way to approach Yahweh, have no way to have fellowship with him. So the Levites, again, playing a very important role. So that transitions us into chapter 18, where, again, very rarely do we see Yahweh speaking directly to Aaron, but we do have it here within this chapter. And the first 7 verses really speak to the role of the Levites in the fellowship and the relationship that the Israelites as a whole would have with Yahweh, that they would be responsible for keeping everything straight. So if there was a sin against the sanctuary, that was going to be the Levites' responsibility. They were to make sure that didn't happen. If there was going to be sin if there's going to be sin against the priesthood, again, they were to watch out for themselves and make sure there were not rebellions, as we've seen, because that's what we've seen previously. Just within the Levites already, we've just seen a rebellion. And now Yahweh is speaking to Aaron and saying, that's y'all's responsibility. You guys are the guards. You are the tabernacle keepers. You are the watchers of my sanctuary. You cannot let anyone who is not supposed to come near it. And you are not to allow someone within your family to cause problems. If you do, that's on you. You've been warned. You've been given this responsibility. But in being given this responsibility, again, it's good again to note as well that this formula is true, that all priests were Levites, but not all Levites were priests. So all priests were Levites, but not all Levites were priests. But that doesn't mean the Levites didn't have work. The work that was given to them is not only in the priesthood, but also in the things that we recognized earlier concerning the moving of the tabernacle, all the different components of it. That was their job. So while not all of them were doing the priestly duties, they still had work to do among the tabernacle. And for that work, again, what was often a very dangerous work, they were going to be taken well care of by Yahweh. How so? Well, the food would be provided for, whether it be the grain offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering, that food was given to them, and they could eat that food. Gifts that were brought to the sanctuary that were to be offered up to Yahweh, those were belonging to the Levites as well. The firstborns were to be dedicated to the Levites. Now, again, if it's a person, you can actually sacrifice a person, so those were to be redeemed. Same thing for unclean animals. They could not be sacrificed, so they could be redeemed. But those things that could be actually sacrificed, such as ox or a sheep or a goat that were clean, they were to be sacrificed to Yahweh as a sign of him getting what was first and the best. The whole contributions belonged to the Levites. But one thing that's missing, at least in our minds, it's missing, is the fact that they had no land. They were not given big portions, big chunks of land as the rest of the tribes were. And we'll throw up later on. I'll put up some graphics that show what the land looked like and how they were divided, or how it was divided among the people. But nonetheless, though they were not given big chunks of land, we'll call them like states, I guess, they did have cities, 48 cities to be exact. And we can read about that in Numbers 35 and verses 1 through 8, and also Joshua 21. Those details are given there. So they didn't have land, but they did have cities in which they could live. But then we're given some new material here in verse 21 as well, moving forward, that just as the whole nation was to give a tenth, that was given to Levites. And then a tenth of that tenth, so 1% of everybody's stuff, was to be offered up to Yahweh. So instead of them actually giving produce from the field, because remember, they didn't have fields, they just had cities. Instead of them giving the grain or the grain from the threshing floor, or the full harvest from the winepress, to that, instead of them giving what they grew because they didn't grow, they just gave a tenth of the tenth that was given to them. So they, again, why is all this detail given? Why? Because the people needed to recognize the important position that the Levites played, an extremely important position. This unholy people, though they should have been holy, they often were not, and they needed the Levites to play this role of intermediaries and mediators between this people and their God. But it also demanded that the Levites live holy lives so that they could carry out these roles. And if they failed to do so, if they failed to either live up to it themselves, or whether they allowed someone unclean or unholy to come before Yahweh, they were going to be responsible for that. So a very responsibility laden position to be a Levite, especially be a part of the priesthood, but also a very blessed one. Again, it's a dangerous thing to be so close to the presence of God, but also such a wonderful, wonderful blessing to be so close to him, literally to be so close to him at times while you're in the tabernacle setting. And also they were well taken care of. They did not have needs. They were taken care of by Yahweh, and they certainly should be thankful for that. No, they did not have everything that the rest of the tribes had, but they had other things that the tribes most certainly didn't have. So we see here then Yahweh making abundantly clear that Aaron and his family of the Levites, they are my special people among my special people. They're the special tribe among my tribes. They're going to fulfill this role of priest, and they're going to do all this work, and I'm going to take care of them in the process as well. And again, a very vital role. And unfortunately, once we get later on into the story of the nation of Israel, we'll see a lot of the problems that they had stem from failed leadership, whether that be the leadership of the kings and leaders, or whether it be of the priesthood themselves. Whenever they failed, well, the people were very soon to follow. Again, a very awesome responsibility, but also a very blessed position to play this role for Yahweh's people of Israel. We'll be back at it again tomorrow, reading together in chapter 19, which is going to tell us a bit about the purification ritual. And then after that, we're going to see a couple of a story that tells us that should sound familiar concerning water from the rock. We'll read about that in chapter 20. But tomorrow we'll look at chapter 19 about a purification ritual. Thank you so much for tuning in to this reading on this Sunday. Looking forward to being with everyone here in just a little bit for our Bible studies at 10 a.m. and our assembly to worship at 11. We'll be going back in the text a little bit to chapters 11 and 12, where we will talk about the episodes of complaining that took place within those chapters. and some important lessons that we can learn from them. Again, thanks for tuning in today, everyone. Looking forward to being with everybody soon. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. May God bless you in all that you do.